today's focus is pin day on Friday, along with what we call a doggy trading day on Monday, and how one can make some money from how this all works. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. We also want to thank our Patreon supporters. If you enjoy the show and like more information for better investing and trading, please join us on Patreon. So today I wanted to kind of focus on the fact that, as you know, on Friday, Tesla's stock price, after being up on Thursday, was down to about 670. What we predicted was by Monday, the number would be back up again. And the reason we predicted that was sort of a backlash to the pin that occurred on Friday. And we actually saw that occur despite the fact that there was some negative news that we saw come out on Tesla regarding recalls. And by the way, I think the recall issue is one that many companies have. And if it's an over-the-air recall, it's not as bad as some things that might have occurred. So one of the things that happened is that we kind of introduced the idea of a pin. And by the way, before we get into the show, I have to remind you again, if you have your own channel, I'm happy you are doing well, but we'd invite you to only use our material if you get permission. To not do so is a copyright violation, and we'd appreciate you not doing that. So we developed and introduced a concept called Pin Day, and an example of it is what happened on Friday. In essence, there are a huge number of calls, probably 50,000 of them between 670 and 700, and the goal that we concluded was that market makers had a strong interest in optimizing the losses by institutions and individuals on those options. So this has been a norm, if you will, for the last, call it 25 years that I've been trading. But I wanted to note that we kind of saw that occur here. There were very few puts. There's a whole bunch of calls. The market makers pulled the price down to reflect this. So we got a chance to see that on Friday, and what we predicted on Monday was that there would be kind of a pop-up related to the fact that it's our sense that the pin would sort of be released by Monday. Now, the logic behind this sort of rolls to the idea that the pin that you see can be done, but it takes a lot of capital to do it. And so I'm trying to keep this bird within our view here, so I hope you guys don't mind a little shift. So basically what was happening is that it's my belief that the reason why the pin will be released is that it takes a lot of capital and technique to implement a pin. And so therefore, it's in the best interest of those that are executing it to kind of release that pin after a certain number of days because of the amount of work it takes to execute it and the cost. Especially if it's been profitable, why allow those profits to disappear in the form of you're sticking around too long in order to generate better numbers, but jeopardize the profit you've earned. So one of the things that happened, and why I call this, we're entering the dog trading zone, is we actually have a friend of the show. I'm not going to say his first name because I don't want to introduce him without permission, but we call him the doggy in that he did something really interesting. What he did was he took the time to go through months worth of data over time to identify after a pin what the trends were in terms of what would happen to the stock price in the following days. So one of the lessons garnered from this work is the fact that, well, wait a second, after a pin, that Monday and Tuesday tend to be strong days for Tesla once the pin has been released, and therefore good days to make money after what looked like a bad day on Friday. So I wanted to encourage you guys to sort of note this if you will, doggy trading process, because it has not been executed on a regular basis like it was being last year. But by noting it now, it facilitates you being able to anticipate what might happen. Now, what he found data-wise was that Monday and Tuesday tended to be strong days after a pin, and then we start the process of going sideways and then down Thursday and Friday into the next pin. And I think this week might be a little bit different because of the big news expected on Friday. So I think a counterweighing variable against this will be implied volatility. So anytime you deal with options, there are three components. There's time, there's proximity to price, implied volatility, I call it delta. And so what I'm expecting is a very large delta number on Thursday, because Elon likely delivers production and sales numbers on Friday. And so therefore there are a lot of people preparing for that day to show up. And I think it's going to be a pretty wild day for Tesla's stock price, especially because we're expecting them to exceed significantly the numbers when it comes to production and revenue. So, you know, what do I think about this? I mean, the thing about it is that it happens a lot. It's probably a 70% happen situation. And because of how consistent it is, I think one can learn about it and learn how to implement it efficiently and profitably over time. So therefore, I think it's worth noting, and then it's worth noting because, for example, let's say you're planning on picking up extra shares. A great day to do so is those pin Fridays, and you'll have at least a $10 or $15 updraft in value by Monday, so you have a built-in profit from being aware from this. Clearly, if you're trading the options, you're trying to buy low, sell high, or type situation as well, and that's also worth noting in this situation. You know, right now, I just think the next week is going to be a hard one for this to work, given another element that we call the 3-day rule, and that sort of rolls into the fact that 4th of July is on Tuesday. Markets are closed, I believe, Monday and Tuesday. So it's going to be a short trading week between Wednesday and Friday. And that's when I expect the full blast of the numbers that we see from Tesla to sort of hit the market and allow people to trade it. So I don't think that this will play out during, you know, the 1 to 2 weeks just after earnings. But once we get back to a rhythm where the market has moved on to other companies that are giving their earnings, et cetera, you know, I think that's when you get an opportunity to sort of ride the benefits of how the pin process kind of works. So we look forward to keeping you abreast of this. I guess the other thing that I would say that's sort of coming in off the water for us is the 3-day rule off of the production numbers that are coming in on Friday. And because we have a holiday, I don't see that starting until next Wednesday, but I think it's going to be significant because pre-market I expect the stock to be very strong as those that wanted to get in on a successful earnings can actually execute that. You know, part of the issue with this is that the after pin day profits seems like a minor issue, and this is one of the reasons I delayed a day, was that, you know, probably 25% of the folks on my channel are doing some trading or investing, or probably 3/4 are investing, but I was intrigued because I got a note from our chart person that, you know, his forecast for Monday was the stock would be down based on the bad news associated with the recalls and how ubiquitous they were in terms of being discussed, you know, in numerous news outlets. And, you know, I have to say that I saw his comment, and this is what's really interesting about Tesla is, can you take the time to do the research that lends itself to a better command of the stock and what it's doing and why, and therefore even look at people with logical arguments and then say, nah, I don't, you know, it's a good comment, but I don't think it fits what I think is going to occur, and then it's really great to see it occur. So if you'd like to, I'd like to invite you to roll back to our show from last Friday, where we kind of describe what would happen on Monday. And one of the goals of our show is not only do you understand generally what's going on with investing in the stock, but I also wanted to have you be able to anticipate where things are going and why, so you can make money on the anticipatory activities as well. The one other thing I'd like to cover today is that there's an entity called Seeking Alpha. And one of the processes we've noticed over time is a fairly concentrated effort for negative news on Tesla and distribution of that. Seeking Alpha has been one of the leading places to get that done. And I was pleasantly surprised this morning to wake up and see an article about the fact that there are a number of issues that have been raised about Tesla. For example, the balance sheet being in difficult position. They're showing $17 billion on the balance sheet. There are also discussions about competition. What he indicated was that, yes, there is competition, but with the size of the market and how fast it's growing, it's very easy for Tesla to grow, and those competitors consuming their sort of share of sales, but without it affecting Tesla's ability to continue growing very rapidly. The other thing that was a key note in his commentary was Tesla's ecosystem. What he pointed out was that Apple actually has really good profitability because they have a whole ecosystem of products that they provide to customers that they generate revenue off of. So for Tesla, obviously, the supercharger network, the self-driving things, there's a whole number of revenue streams, energy, that's a growing business. So there are a large number of ways in which Tesla is delivering in an ecosystem solutions, and therefore it starts to generate profit and revenue, not unlike how Apple does it. So I think it's a really well done article, and I think it might be worth your time to check out because I think for a regular investor, et cetera, of Tesla, I think that this further solidifies how and why the company is successful, and you could see it doing so going forward. So at any rate, our goal today was to really just focus on pin day, and then the doggy trade as of Monday, and then sort of leverage that knowledge so that we can implement it better the more times we see this going on a profitable basis. Just a reminder, we do have a few SpaceX shares. Please hit us on Facebook if there's interest. We also wanted to encourage you to like and subscribe if you enjoy the show. Also wanted to encourage you to join us on Patreon if you'd like more intensive information and support for investing and trading. Next, we sort of bounce over to our health tips of the week. The first one I wanted to mention is that I met a professor who was at the NIH who was switching as a doctor to Columbia University, and he indicated that one of the things a lot of people aren't aware of is having kids around animals, cows, etc., reduces the chance that they're going to have issues with allergies, because for some reason exposure to the dung of the cows, etc., really lowers the chance of this happening, and maybe something to consider. And then speaking of Columbia, there was another professor that I had an encounter with who's a cardiothoracic surgeon there. And one of the things she pointed out that I thought was interesting is she said, well, you all are familiar with bacon, right? Well, you should only eat bacon twice a year, your birthday and Christmas. And this was about 2 years ago, maybe 3, that she said that. And it really affected my thinking and affected my bacon consumption. And therefore, I wanted to recommend you guys consider this as well. We also wanted to remind you of prior to lovemaking to encourage you to consider a very light meal to facilitate more blood flow to the rest of your body. And I think, we do have a list below, but don't forget, don't eat within 4 hours of going to bed, minimum 2 hours to let the food digest prior to going to bed. At any rate, this is Greg for Teslafaninsight. I want to thank you for sharing your particular language background with me. At this point, I'm good with the ones I have, and I don't look bad because I can pronounce them. But if you guys are persistent, I just saw a note come in from the Ukraine. I'd be happy to work to embrace that and learn how to pronounce properly, so I'll seem somewhat normal for your individual country. At any rate, this is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Tschüss, German, au revoir, French, Lehitro, Hebrew, Hoda, Hafez, Farsi, Zdravstvuyte, Russian, Ni hao ma, Chinese, Konbanwa, Japanese, Hey do, Swedish, good day, our friends in Australia, Namaste, our friends in India, and obviously Hey do in Swedish, Zdravstvuyte, Russian. I wanted to also note that I'm really thrilled that France is out of the Euros, and the reason is that the World Cup is coming up in 2 years, and the Euros are slightly significant, but nothing like the World Cup is. And I really think that a new Euro has showed up where, for key players, the objective of lesser teams is to injure players so they aren't available during the regular playing year. So by France not being in it, Pogba, call it all the bright stars that are there, are not going to get injured playing in the Euros because so many of the players in the Euros are desperate. And the example I would give is De Bruyne for Man City is now injured and out, and so is Eden Hazard as well for Belgium. And these are examples of why it's dangerous to play when the referees are letting lesser players attack good players with ugly fouls, and they don't give them red cards, so they're encouraged to keep doing it. So, at any rate, for those soccer fans who are of interest in that regard. Anyway, thanks again for joining us. In Jamaica, we say, enough respect, walk good.